But what if we want, for example, this client to have an IP address that ends with 2 or with 3 instead of 1? What we have to do? For example, if we have many devices, for example, we have printer, we have DNS, and we have another server that we want it to have a specific IP address. So here, the DHCP server is offer us another service, is the DHCP IP address reservation. And how this DHCP server reservation works is in the DHCP server creates a table, and in this table there is an IP address, there is a device name, and there is a MAC address. So for example, that this user, for example, has this MAC address, right? And we want him to have an IP address end with 2 instead of 1. So we will go to the DHCP server, then we will copy this MAC address here, and then we add it here, and for example we will give it him, for example, printer. Then here we'll say to the DHCP server to give him this IP address that ends with 3, and the same thing for the device that we want them to have a specific IP address. Now let's go to the DNS. Is a domain name service. In your browser, right? When you try to connect to Google, that name that you type in your browser is not the name that gets outside and then retrieve the Google web page. But instead of that, once you type the name www.google.com, that name is resolved to an IP address. It is here the IP address of our Google. Then the browser will take that IP address that responded by the DNS server and try to make a request to them. Then we will have a response. Let me show you, for example, here, and go to the CMD. And we'll type ns lookup, right? And here we have this address. This is my default gateway of the router. Because in the router, this address show me where my DNS is reside. So once I will send a request, for example, www.google.com, right? It will go to my default gateway, and in my default gateway there is the DNS of Google, that is 8.8.8.8.8, and it will resolve me this string or this host name to an IP address. Then my browser will send the request using that IP address of Google to send it to the web server. Then the web server will respond me with a web page. So let me go to our lab and try to implement that, and we can see that in real life how it is working. So I will go to my lab, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I will create a private network. And to create a private network in VMware Workstation, we have to connect all our VMs to the same switch. And to do that, go here to the tape Then go to settings. Then to the network adapter and go down here, LAN segment, and you can create, for example, another segment and we call it lab. Okay, then go to lab and click OK. Then come here as well and do the same thing for our DNS server. So I want to connect the DNS server, the DHCP server, and the client in the same switch. And click OK. So as you can see that I disconnected, and now if I try to type fconfig, I have to use the sudo and enter the password. As you can see, I have no IP address. Same thing here, I will enter my password, and here as well enter my password. And the first thing that I'm going to do, so because in this lab we are going to use the apt get package manager to install our DHCP server package and its dependencies, we have to connect to the internet. Okay, but if you have the package and use ppkg package manager to install your DHCP server, you don't need the internet. So let me go here now and I have to connect with the internet. I will use the NAT. Then okay, okay, so now if it is connected, if config sudo, you have an IP address here. Here. Now first thing that we are going to do is to install our DHCP server package. You will find this in my GitHub repository. Then I will copy it. Sudo git install yes. Now try service HTTP server status wild. Okay, will work later.